They don't love their partner. They love what their partner can provide. The house, the lifestyle, the security, the status. They made a calculated decision to marry a bank account with a person attached to it. And if you think this is rare, you're not paying attention. Marrying for money is more common than people admit, and the psychology behind it is way more complex than simple gold digging. Some people know exactly what they're doing. Others have convinced themselves it's love. Let's break down what's really happening. Today we're diving into people who marry for money. Not people who happen to fall in love with someone wealthy. We're talking about people who specifically target, pursue, and marry someone because of their financial status, where the money is primary and the person is secondary. This isn't a moral judgment. This is a psychological breakdown of why people make this choice, what they're seeking, and what it costs them. Not everyone who marries for money has the same motivation. There are 5 distinct psychological types. Type 1, the survivalist. They're not chasing luxury, they're escaping poverty. They grew up broke and decided financial security was worth sacrificing romantic love. This is resource-driven mate selection. They're trauma survivors using marriage as an escape route from generational poverty. Type 2, the status seeker. They don't just want money, they want what money represents. The Instagram lifestyle, the country club membership. This is social comparison theory gone extreme. Their self-worth is entirely external. Marrying wealth is how they prove they matter. The money isn't the goal, the envy is. They thrive on the gaze of others, using their partner's wealth as a shield against insignificance. Type 3, the strategist. They've done the math. Romance is temporary. Financial security is practical. They view marriage as a business transaction. This is transactional relationship orientation. Love is a bonus, not a requirement. They're not being dishonest, they're being pragmatic. To them, marrying for love and struggling financially is the irrational choice. Marrying for stability is just smart. Type 4, the self-deceiver. Here's the tricky one. They genuinely believe they're in love. But if you stripped away the money, the attraction would evaporate. Psychologists call this motivated reasoning. They need to believe it's love, because admitting it's transactional would shatter their self-image as a good person. So they confuse security with affection, lifestyle with connection. The luxury of the environment feeds their emotional narrative. Type 5, the wounded. They learned early that love is unreliable, but money is tangible. Maybe a parent abandoned them. This is attachment avoidance through material focus. They're not cold or calculating. They're protecting themselves. Money can't break your heart. A study found that marriages where financial considerations outweighed emotional connection had divorce rates 30% higher than emotionally motivated marriages. Translation: you can marry money, but you can't buy fulfillment. What's the internal experience? Cognitive dissonance is constant. They know, on some level, the truth. But humans can't tolerate seeing themselves as bad people. So they create narratives. The dissonance between "I married for money" and "I'm a good person" requires constant mental gymnastics. They live in perpetual performance. Every day is an audition. They have to be attractive and entertaining to justify their access to the money. Psychologists call this relational labor. It's exhausting. They're not living, they're performing the role of spouse to maintain financial access. The power imbalance is suffocating. The person with the money holds all the cards. This creates what's called resource-based dominance. The financially dependent partner has traded autonomy for security, and that trade costs them their sense of self. They can't leave even when they're miserable. Once they've built a life dependent on that income, the exit costs are too high. The lifestyle, the kids' schools, the social circle. They're locked in, not by love, but by financial architecture. Leaving would mean losing everything they married to gain. Let me tell you about someone I knew named Michelle. She married a man 20 years older. She was upfront about it. I'm not attracted to him, but he'll take care of me. And he did. But 10 years in, she told me, "I feel like I'm suffocating. I have everything except myself." She couldn't leave. She traded her 20s and 30s for financial security. And now, at 42, she was realizing the price was her entire identity. So let's be honest about the trade. What do people gain by marrying for money? And what do they sacrifice? What they gain: financial security. No more worrying about rent. No more paycheck to paycheck stress. Bills get paid. Life gets easier materially. That's real. That matters. For someone who grew up in poverty, that relief is intoxicating. What they gain: status and lifestyle. The trips, the clothes, the house, the ability to signal success. If your self-worth is external, this fills the void temporarily. What they gain: stability for their children, good schools, safe neighborhoods, opportunities they never had. For many people who marry for money, this is the justification that makes everything else tolerable. But here's what they lose: authentic connection. You can't have real intimacy when the foundation is transactional. There's always a layer of performance, a part of yourself you can't show because it might threaten your access to resources. What they lose: autonomy. Every decision is filtered through financial dependence. You can't fully be yourself when someone else controls your survival. What they lose: self-respect. On some level, they know. They traded themselves for security, and that knowledge erodes their sense of dignity over time. What they lose: the ability to leave. Once you're financially enmeshed, the exit costs become overwhelming. You're not staying because you want to. You're staying because you can't afford not to. Research from UCLA found that people in financially motivated marriages report significantly higher rates of depression and anxiety, and what's called identity foreclosure, the feeling that they never got to become who they actually were. Marrying for money isn't necessarily wrong. It's just expensive in ways that don't show up on a bank statement. You're trading time for money in the most permanent way possible. You're exchanging your 20s, 30s, 40s, your entire life for financial security. And unlike a job, you can't quit without losing everything. Some people make that trade consciously and survive it. They go in clear-eyed, negotiate the terms, and accept the emotional cost. But most people lie to themselves. They tell themselves it's love when it's convenience. They tell themselves they're happy when they're numb. And 20 years later, they wake up next to a stranger whose money bought them a life they no longer recognize as their own. If you're considering marrying for money, ask yourself one question: what would you do if the money disappeared tomorrow? If your answer is, I'd stay because I love them, then maybe it wasn't just about money after all. But if your answer is, I'd leave immediately, then you already know the truth. You're in a financial arrangement with emotional collateral. And there's nothing wrong with acknowledging that. The damage comes from pretending it's something it's not. Psychologists call this relationship clarity. Knowing what you're actually in is healthier than lying to yourself about it. People who marry for money aren't villains. They're making a calculated trade where financial security feels more reliable than love. But the cost of that trade is higher than most people realize when they sign up. Subscribe to Money Archetype for more psychology.